Hey, my name is Alec Wenzel, and today we are talking about how to link pentatonic boxes on the guitar. What this does for us is this gives us just access to the whole guitar neck and lets us move our licks around to make it a little bit more interesting. Now, it sounds a little complicated, but it's essentially doing this, right? It's going from having one position for your pentatonic scale to having multiple positions for it like this, right? And by linking different positions, we can get access to more notes for our solos and to just be able to play those really nice ascending lines that we hear from like an Eric Johnson or like a Joe Bonamassa, a Jimi Hendrix, right? These scales exist everywhere. But before we get into all of that, please like and subscribe. My channel is really new, and a lot of you have subscribed already. The growth has been amazing, and I'd just love to see it continue. So if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much. If you're a brand new viewer, please hit that subscribe button just in the bottom right-hand corner underneath the video player. All right, so let's get into it. What do I mean when I say we're going to link pentatonic scales on the guitar? Well, a few weeks ago, I did a lesson video that I'll link up above my head and down below in the description, where I talk about how to practice the guitar at 3 different levels. And what I talk about in that 3rd level is guitar players who get stuck in their boxes, right? When you're soloing on the guitar, we tend to think of our scales as these sort of 4 fret positions that exist in one place and then another spot on the guitar, 12 frets up all the way up here in the top part of the guitar. And what happens is when you're soloing, you feel like you have to make these giant jumps, when in reality, we could link them very smoothly, right? In the lesson video that I talk about linking those scales by learning to practice our scales linearly as we travel up the fretboard, right? Starting on one note and then following our pattern of the scale all the way up. But another way that we could do this is by learning our pentatonic box shapes in multiple positions. So what do these positions look like? Well, if you've tried improvising on the guitar at all, you've probably played a minor pentatonic scale. They form the basis for most blues and rock solos, and they're typically where we start to learn how to play licks. I'm going to play one now starting from the low E in the 5th fret. This is an A minor pentatonic scale through 2 octaves. Now, I kind of refer to that as our standard pentatonic minor scale. And when I talk about linking positions, I don't simply mean that you can take this pattern and move it 2 frets up. If you do that, you move it from being an A minor pentatonic scale to a B minor pentatonic scale. These pentatonic positions use different patterns to use the same notes and just play them in a different place on the guitar. The guitar is a redundant instrument, which means that you can play the same note in multiple places, right? So I can start my A minor pentatonic scale like this, going A to C, or I can play that A to C like this. Well, if I choose to follow a pattern that way by playing this sort of alternate pentatonic minor position, I end up with a scale that looks like this. That's the same A minor pentatonic scale that I just played, A to A in 2 octaves, but I'm kind of playing this reflection, right? And that's what I mean by having different positions of the pentatonic minor scale. We get reflections of our pentatonic minor scale on either side of the scale because of the guitar's ability to play the same note in 2 different places. Now, you might be thinking, great, that's all well and good, but why does it matter to me? Well, the reason it matters is because instead of getting stuck in one spot, we can then learn how to move forwards and backwards to get smoother lines, right? So often we end up in this place where we think, oh, I've got all these licks right here. And then when I want it to be exciting, I'm going to jump all the way up here. But that just left a ton of room in between, and it's kind of a jarring jump. If you wanted to get up into a higher position, you could start to think about it a little bit more like this. Right? That was a little bit less jarring because I was able to connect from a low part of the guitar to a high part of the guitar without having to make any sort of incongruent jumps. So now I'm going to show you how to play all positions of the A minor pentatonic scale. And what I want us to recognize is that not all of these positions start from an A note. That is because for the idea of these reflections to work, we have to be using notes that sort of extend on either side. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't include all the notes of an A minor pentatonic scale, and it's still the same scale. I'll also be including chord diagrams and an exercise that I got from a Mateus Asato interview with Reverb, where he goes over his warm-up routine, and I'll be linking that video up above my head and also down below in the description. So the first position starts on a G in the 3rd fret of the low E string, and it goes like this. The next position is going to be that standard A minor pentatonic that I played for you earlier, starting from the 5th fret of the low E string. That third position is going to start from the 8th fret of the low E on a C note, and it's going to go like this. The fourth position is going to start from a D on the low E string in the 10th fret. It's going to sound like this. The fifth position is going to start from the low E in the 12th fret. It's going to sound like this. And then finally, we are back to that first position that we started in, 12 frets up. We're going to be starting from the 15th fret of the low E on a G note again, and it sounds like this. And that is all of the positions of an A minor pentatonic scale, right? Like I said again, not all of these scales have to start with an A to include all of the notes of A minor pentatonic. Now we're going to get into an exercise that'll help you practice linking them. So again, I got this exercise from an interview with Mateus Asato and Reverb, where he talks about his warm-up routine. Now, I think this is a really musical way to practice linking these different positions of the pentatonic minor scales together. The way the exercise works is like this. You start from the low end of one position, and you play all the way up into the high end, and then you slide from the high end of that position into the high end of the next position and descend there. Then once you're in the low end of that position, you're going to slide up again into the low end of the next position and ascend the scale there. Then you would repeat this process over and over until you've made it all the way through the cycle. Now, there will be some tabs on screen to help you follow along if you're having trouble seeing my hand, but it's going to sound something like this. Again, we're starting from that first position I played for you a minute ago in the 3rd fret of the low E string. Here's what that exercise sounds like. So once you've gotten pretty good at ascending through all of the positions of our A minor pentatonic scale using that exercise, you could then begin to loop the exercise by moving backwards through our positions in the same way. We end up at the end of that exercise kind of in our 15th and 17th fret scale position of our A minor pentatonic scale, which is really just a repeat of our starting position, 12 frets up. And then we could slide backwards into our 12th fret A minor pentatonic scale position and ascend the scale there. Then once we're at the high end of that, we would slide backwards into the 10th fret position of our A minor pentatonic scale in its highest point, and then descend from there. We would keep doing this process of sliding backwards into the previous position and ascending or descending until eventually we make it all the way back to the start of our now loop. Here's what that would sound like all together. And that's how that all sounds together, right? Now, at the end there, I sort of just repeated our first position so we could end it, but that's essentially the idea. And you could choose to go up or down as many times as you would like until you feel like you're moving through all of those positions really fluidly. So we've played all these positions of our A minor pentatonic scale, and we've learned an exercise to help us move through them in a fluid way. But what does this actually mean for our playing? Well, as I said earlier, it's about not being inside of a box, right? It's not feeling like the only way that I have to create excitement in a solo is just trying to play notes faster and faster in this single position, right? If I have places that I can move outside of that position, then I have different places to resolve to, different ways to start lines, ways to play around with what's happening musically that doesn't depend on being isolated, right? So I've got a loop set up on my looper here, and we're going to look at a couple ways to use these different positions that we just talked about. And what you'll notice is that we're always kind of resolving back to this place that we know and love, right? Our standard A minor pentatonic position, but we can start in maybe ways that might force us to think a little bit differently about what it is that we're playing. So here's my loop. This is A minor 7, and then here's D dominant 7. So now I'm going to start playing some lines. I'm going to start in this first position I described to you, and then I'll move into our standard position. See? I was able to play kind of a nice line in here that then resolved right back into our standard position. And then from there, you could play something a little bit more familiar, right? So I'll get back into that. See, then I got into my standard position and resolved out into our 8th fret position of our A minor pentatonic scale. Now, what happens if you kind of start a line there? Well, it might sound like this. See? We can start nice lines that sit outside of there while sliding back inside of our standard A minor pentatonic position. But what happens if we want to try something higher? Well, that might sound like this. See, up here in this 12th fret position, I have access to this really nice A minor triad, and it gives us this nice little lick that we can play. Right? It gives us access to something that we wouldn't have in these other positions because we can't really rake through them in a musical way, right? You'd also get that A minor triad here, but it's just in a straight line. Feels kind of different. And it's not as easy to create something that feels separated when you're doing it in this lower position. These are all just little examples of how I'm able to move around the fretboard in a way that feels fluid and connects lines that we wouldn't necessarily be able to get just in this one position right here. So I'm hoping you're all starting to see a little bit of the value of knowing where you can move these notes around to, even with these sort of simple ideas that I'm playing right now. And finally, that is how we begin to link different pentatonic positions on the guitar. We're going to start by learning all of our positions, moving up the neck for our pentatonic scale. We are then going to use an exercise to help us develop fluidity between those positions. And then finally, we're going to use those positions to help us improvise new lines on the guitar and not feel trapped in our box. Now, I know that we only covered one scale here. We only used A minor pentatonic the whole time. But because the guitar is one giant pattern, we can simply shift what we've learned forward and backward frets to give us access to different keys. Now, I know that that sounds kind of tedious and hard, but there's no better way to learn it, and I can't do that work for you. That's something that only you can do as a viewer. If you liked what you heard here today and you liked the lesson, please like and subscribe. It means the world to me that I've been given this much support, and I would love to see the support grow. So thank you guys so much for coming and listening to what I have to say, and please check out some other videos. I hope to see you back here for more lessons, guitar gear reviews, and just general guitar content. Thank you guys so much. My name is Alec Wenzel, and I hope to see you back here soon. Goodbye.